Hey, hello there. I'm joined with James Esses. Hello, James.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I said I'm joined with James Esses. What the fuck did that mean? James, thank you for coming on today. I know it's probably been a crazy day. You were in the Daily Mail. You opened your crowdfunder, and you must be delighted at how it's going. You're. I think you may even be at 30,000. Is that right? Let me just see. You're a little short of 30,000. So I will post the thing, and hopefully we'll get it up. We'll get it over 30 while we're talking. But you must be delighted.
Oh, I am. I mean, I'm also shocked. I knew that there was support out there. I've been engaging in these circles for a few months, but I didn't think it was this level of support actually, so quickly. Actually, and the messages I've received, many of which were motivational, some of which were quite saddening. I've had again, as I often do, quite a few parents reach out to me who have been struggling, seeing what's been happening with their children. And so that's kind of made me a bit more reflective as well and reminded me kind of what it is that we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we've often said it, but the one of the biggest signs that people aren't going along with this stuff is the fact that every single crowdfunder that is started to fight it in one way or another hits its target almost immediately.
Mm.
I mean, these are ordinary people as well. I think they found out that the amounts given to Maya, was it? We talked about it on the last one, but I can't remember. We've just done the mess we're in. The average was something like 27 quid. So these are ordinary people voting with their wallets.
I know, it's quite incredible, really. I mean, it shows the power of this type of collective crowd justice. I keep being told that it's going to, the market's saturated, as it were, and that eventually people will get tired of donating to these causes, but it's not happening, and it's showing just how strongly, yes, just normal, average people feel about these issues.
Yeah. Let's go back for people who don't know you and who don't understand what's at stake here. Let's go back to. Let me ask a couple of questions. Now, the case is against a university that you were 3 years through a course in. Is that right?
Yes, I was just about to complete my third year.
Just about to complete your third year. You want to become a therapist. You want to work with children. Why did they suddenly decide to expel you?
I'm still not entirely sure, Graham, which I think it kind of underlines what's going on here. But as I said, I'd been there for almost 3 years. As far as I was aware, I was doing pretty good. Didn't seem to be any major concerns. I'd actually just been signed off a few weeks prior to set up my own private practice, which was an amazing step, and I was feeling extremely positive about. I was already setting up the website and just really excited to put myself out there and start seeing paying clients. And then, yes, I've been kind of working on this petition around the conversion therapy legislation. I've been doing a few minor media engagements, and then out of the blue, I was contacted by senior management at Metanoia, and then it all kind of tumbled from there, really.
Can I ask? I don't want to take the credit, so to speak, although credit is a weird word to use in this. But did it have anything to do with the interview I did with you and the thoughtful therapists? Which was a few months back. I think we did it before May.
Yes, actually, that does seem to have contributed towards it, Graham. So I don't know whether I should blame you for my demise, but I mean, what seemed to have happened was various complaints, but it seems, from my understanding, only a handful. But anyway, a handful of complaints have been made to Metanoia about me, including things that I said on appearances, such as with you. They'd kind of poured through the transcripts and picked out quotes completely out of context, of course, and then tried to suggest that in some way that made me, I don't know, transphobic, bigoted, all the usual phrases.
Yeah. And the university has just. It seems to me very foolish of the university to go along with this after Maya's victory. Do you think they just kind of reacted in panic and got rid of you without really thinking it through?
I had thought that. but now I'm aware that actually they some of these complaints about me were raised a few months in advance. So
yeah.
But clearly some sort of escalation process went on. I mean, as I've made clear, on the 5th of May, I was being told this is just an informal meeting. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. Very clearly actually saying there's nothing to worry about in those words. And then within 24 hours, I was gone, expelled. Wow. It's
incredible. I mean, it just goes to show, I think the power that these people have, and it's crazy because it's a kind of illusion. It's an illusion of power. They don't. If you ignored them, everything would be fine. It's so strange the way they just jump to their bidding every time.
Yeah, it is. As I said, they clearly got a few complaints in, but I don't know, to warrant policy, procedure, ethics being chucked out the window, I don't get it myself, really.
Yeah.
Particularly from an institute that is meant to be training therapists, and therefore I would think that things such as transparency and empathy would be high up in their, list of ethics and, high importance for them. But actually, again, it went out the window. They seem to have no consideration of me. Or their duty of care that they would have towards me as a student there whatsoever. It was shocking. And even when I still talk about it now, I still can't quite believe it happened.
Yeah, this fight is full of unbelievable things. Like Marion Miller's arrest. I never thought it would go. I never thought they'd actually charge her, but they did, and it just puts us in this strange kind of wonderland, doesn't it? Like beyond the looking glass.
Well, exactly, and it makes me fear. Who is safe in all of this? And if we are not able to have, open dialogue about important issues for fear of losing livelihoods, reputations, career pathways, or even freedom in the sense of people being arrested, then what do we have as a society? Yeah,
let's take this opportunity to say for you to say kind of very clearly, what are your opinions on trans affirmative care, how it's being utilized how it's being applied at the moment, and where the controversy lies in your opinions?
My concern is with the lack of balance and the lack of nuance, particularly when we're dealing with very complicated mental health issues. If someone were to come into my office, a client with any other presentation that was causing them to feel discomfort or out of ease with themselves or their place in the world or their identity, it would be reckless of me to simply just, unconditionally affirm whatever anxiety-provoking feeling or belief was inside their head. It would be my duty as a therapist to remain neutral, of course, but to be explorative, to be curious, to try and figure out what could be causing these feelings, because often things aren't as they seem, and often how we present or something we may feel about ourselves can be linked to something that we've experienced many, many years ago. I mean, this is all, clearly documented in terms of early childhood experiences and how they can inform our personality and how we feel about ourselves when we're adults. So if we don't do it for any other mental health condition, I'm not sure why we would do it for gender dysphoria. And choosing not to do a solely affirmative approach does not mean I would not treat someone with respect, and it does not mean that I would not support someone in what they wanted in their lives. But if they're coming to me and they want to explore and talk about these issues, I have to be able to do that, and that means not simply encouraging them down a pathway of transitioning.
Yes. And affirmative seems to suggest unquestioning, and surely therapy is based on questions.
Well, exactly. I mean, you should never, I think the mantra really is that you should never go into a meeting with a client with a preconceived idea of where they should end up with their own lives. But actually an affirmation only approach does exactly that.
Yes, yes. So can I ask, since our interview, although I'm somehow, I know this is terrible, but I'm somehow a little bit proud that it was anything to do with me, because whenever these guys, you're obviously going through hell, but it is actually great when they do things like this, because it shows everybody the atmosphere. It shows everybody that even things as important as therapy even have been captured. Their overreaching is always a strategic mistake on their part. Like, for instance, the Maya result, they don't have a chance, do they? In this one, it seems to me.
Well, I mean, the judgment in her favour at the appeal tribunal was, resounding.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
But it doesn't seem to. I don't know. It doesn't seem to stop. There's still this kind of barrage of these slurs being thrown and this attempt to shut people down, even when we've got now, clear judicial statements kind of protecting what myself, what Maya, and others are saying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, it's terrible you're going through it, but with any luck, we might see these kinds of cases dwindle down as they realize they're onto a loser, because I can't imagine your beliefs are absolutely protected. You can argue with solid evidence behind you that affirmation is not necessarily a great cure for kids with dysphoria. So, even though you're going through hell, I hope that it means that others won't when you're finished this, because it feels like an important case.
Well, that's partly why I'm pursuing this. I mean, obviously, it's primarily because I have to kind of I have to seek restitution for the injustice that I feel has been caused to me. But these are important issues for the whole of society, and I could have just walked away from it and thought, to hell with it. I'll just pretend this part of my life never happened. But out of principle, I simply couldn't do that. The stakes are far too high.
Yeah, that's what people don't seem to understand. They don't seem to understand this isn't just an argument about pronouns. We're talking about children being put on a pathway that could, ruin their lives. The effects that testosterone has on the appearance of girls, the kind of cheerleading towards surgery, as if surgery is this great cure. When in fact it's kind of like a business that it seems to have only really taken hold in the West. It's just so strange to see this blindness to it, and I'm very surprised to see that therapy has been captured just like every other field. Where did the capture come from in therapy, do you think, or do you have any thoughts on that?
To be honest, it's difficult to work out what is, capture and what is just people and organizations going along with things for fear of, being criticized or condemned. So they kind of go along with this political correct way of being. I see it in corporate culture as much as in therapy or third sector organizations. So, which is difficult, because it means that it's difficult for me to actually know, for example, in my case, what the senior management of my organization actually think. I can't work out whether it's an expression of their beliefs that are contrary to mine, or whether actually they're just doing it because they're, they're scared not to. They want, virtue signaling, I guess.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because the victims of this type of thing often end up in the same situation. You can't get answers out of people. You can't get explanations of what you've said that's wrong, and it seems to me that this happens because they obviously don't actually, they know that they have a kind of a wobbly basis for all this stuff.
Yeah. But then, again, in my own instance, on the night that they had expelled me, and I don't know how I knew, I don't know, maybe I'm telepathic, but I just had a bad feeling, and there was somebody that said to me, I need to look on their Twitter page, which I don't normally do, but and then I saw that they posted that statement about the fact they had expelled a student, which was very clearly me. And at the bottom of it, they put out some statement kind of in solidarity, I think they said, with the LGBT community. And it just felt like a kind of conspiracy, or a kind of a mob almost, that they were kind of throwing me under the bus to appease these activists, I can only presume, who have got very loud voices and a lot of hate.
Yeah. And what happened with the NSPCC exactly? Well, is that part of this case, or is that something that just happened kind of on the side?
Yeah, that's a side show, unfortunately. But so yes, there's no legal challenge there. I mean, I was volunteering there.
Yes,
it's a lot less clear cut when you're volunteering than when you're a student. But basically, I've been a volunteer counsellor there for almost 6 years. I was hoping I was going to spend the rest of my life volunteering there. It was probably one of the most fulfilling aspects of my life, actually, and I loved speaking to the young people. And I began to engage with some of the senior management at Childline in terms of what I was doing around the petition, etc., out of transparency, because I felt I had to hide, and I was raising some concerns I had as well in terms of their approach, either to counselling or to some of the information that they were putting out to young people on their website, for example. And it seemed for a time as if they were willing to work with me on it, actually, and there were some hopeful conversations. But I was told categorically, under no circumstances in any of your advocacy can you identify yourself as a Childline counsellor. I went along with that for a period of time, and then a few months in, I thought, well, why is this? I mean, it's a fact that I'm a counsellor. Why shouldn't I be able to state that fact? Why should I have to keep this some sort of kind of dirty secret? So I went back to them again and I said, listen, I would really like to be able to simply refer to myself as a counsellor at Childline. It doesn't mean I'm speaking on your behalf. It's just stating a fact. So the head of Childline invited me to a Zoom call to discuss that, or so I thought. I was told again it was just an informal conversation. It was just myself and him. And then after a few social niceties, 5 minutes in, I was told my contract of volunteering was being terminated with immediate effect and not to come in for my shift that week.
Yeah. It's Childline are very interesting, aren't they? I remember, people may not remember, but there was a scandal involving a guy called James Esses. He was the guy who got Monroe Bergdorf to kind of represent Childline, and Bergdorf was doing something probably very innocently, but something that is a no-no with safeguarding, which was he was encouraging children to contact him, which you're not supposed to do. And me and a bunch of other people complained to the NSPCC about this. I'm a father of 2 children. I was blocked by the NSPCC for pointing out these safeguarding features. So I mean, it's quite frightening that the NSPCC would actually rather block people than talk about the holes in their safeguarding.
Yes, I think it would be bad enough if it were a corporate company, but a charitable organisation with these type of aims and who's meant to have the best interests and well-being of young people at heart and should listen to all concerns. I think it's very worrying.
Yeah, and did you ever kind of get an idea that they were taking a wrong direction, or did any of that stuff kind of trickle down to you while you were working for them?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things. I think the first was just the general air of things. I became aware quite early on into my volunteering there that Stonewall had some hand in things. And that wasn't because I was privy to any secret information. It was because there were Stonewall posters plastered all over the counselling room.
Okay.
It wasn't subtle.
Yeah.
And that, I felt, created a bit of a sense. And I would speak to some counsellors in private about this, a sense that you couldn't really talk about these issues. We kind of just had to go along with it. So I think that was an issue. I think the training courses themselves are pretty directive when it comes to issues around gender. I had a real issue with the web page on the Childline website, and I proposed all sorts of amendments and suggestions, which were obviously never taken on board. But the web page, to me, reads a bit of a roadmap towards transitioning. In fact, other than Childline's own service, there wasn't a single reference to counselling or therapy on the page, but numerous references to changing pronouns, to puberty blockers, etc. they have a video on the page from two individuals who've transitioned and are now activists, and they're basically talking about how amazing a journey it was for them. But then there's no corresponding video of a detransitioner talking about how much it ruined their life. So it lacks balance.
Yes, I can kind of like, understand when someone like the police are captured by this stuff, because it looks so shiny and it means that they don't have to do the difficult job of actually thinking about inclusivity and diversity. They can outsource that thinking to Stonewall. But it seems strange to me that when the stakes are so high, the NSPCC would do the same thing.
Well, I think that just shows how much of a voice and how much clout these organisations, particularly, I mean, Stonewall's one of many, but in particular. But again, we've seen government departments in the same way. We've seen all sorts of organisations up and down the country who want to get brownie points from Stonewall. But what we're forgetting is that they're very much a partisan organisation. They claim to speak on behalf of all LGBT people. Well, I know a hell of a lot of transgender and also gay people who say they have nothing to do with them and they do not speak on their behalf.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's and also it's kind of it's revealing that this is still being presented as a moral debate when in fact it's purely ideological. There are so many trans people who disagree with Stonewall's approach that I'm surprised that they are able to frame people like yourself and myself as anti-LGBT. Surely the argument must have kind of broken out of that by now, but it seems like it's still tightly controlled so that people like yourself are considered hateful.
Well, they seem to control the narrative. I mean, in terms of strategy, they've done extremely well. And people say that talking about pronouns, etc., is it's a sidetracking from the main thing, but actually it's relevant because once you start to embed language into people's lives, then it's much easier to get them singing from the same hymn sheet as you, really. So, I saw in the news the other day, I think it was in Scotland, certain was mandating or strongly suggesting people put their pronouns in their email signature. And once you start doing that, then I feel that you're already on your way towards being kind of held captive a bit, because it creates a new status quo, and to depart from that makes you vulnerable for accusation of wrongdoing. Yeah.
Luckily, though, I was delighted to see that most civil servants said they're not going to do it. So that's good. It seems that this kind of ideology kind of melts when it actually gets out when it meets some oxygen. You know what I mean? When people start scrutinizing it, realizing what it's all about, it seems to kind of dissipate. Do you think that this kind of current period we're going through, are you hopeful that it'll end?
I mean, I'm known for being generally pessimistic and cynical, but I do hope so. I do think it feels like the tide is turning very, very slowly, but there's been a few, good results recently, and I hope a few more to come. I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I think again, it's terrible that you have to go through it, and I'm so sorry that your studies have been interrupted in this way. But I think that this is going to be a major one, and as we speak, let me just see where we are now. You're at 29,130. So you've only got like a little bit more to go till. I'm not going to do the maths. I'm not going to try and say it in case I get it wrong. A little bit more until you hit 30,000. So you're easily going to make your target. And also you've got two fantastic people representing you, which is also good to see. You must feel fairly relaxed with the quality of your team.
I do. I'm very lucky. And I have a lot of faith and trust in them, and they've had some excellent results recently. At the same time, it's this is still anxiety provoking. Having formerly worked in law, I know that litigation can be so unpredictable, and it can also take a hell of a long time. It can end up costing more than you ever envisaged. So it's quite scary when you kind of outsource a decision to a judge or a tribunal. I hope that common sense, but also justice prevail in the end.
Yeah, and I think that, however long it takes, I think you'll have supporters who will help you get there, So I wouldn't worry about that side of things. I hope that you're able to continue doing what you love doing, even through this craziness. And yeah, I'm very optimistic about your chances, because I do think this is just like people are under a spell, and it's cases like yours that will break that spell.
I hope so. I have faith.
Yeah, me too. Well, listen, is there anything else that you'd like to add just before we call it a day? I just wanted to kind of make sure that we spoke to you on the day that you released the crowdfunder, and make sure that as many people knew about it as possible. But is there anything else that we haven't covered?
Just to thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and I appreciate the work that you're continuing to do in this space. And just, again, to those watching who've supported me already, just to say thank you. I've been overwhelmed with the messages and the donations I've received today, and that if people want to support me, you can find it all via my Twitter. It's just my name, James Esses. You'll find the article and the crowdfunding page. And yeah, just to say that although these are difficult times and there's a lot of uncertainty, I and others I know are going to keep fighting, for justice in all of this, because the stakes are far too high, as we've said. Whether it's talking about women's rights, whether it's talking about vulnerable children and safeguarding them, or whether it's talking about upholding free speech, these are far too important to give up on, and I'm not going to give up myself.
Yeah, good, and I'm very proud to be on your side, James. I'm so proud to be on the side of you and everyone else at Thoughtful Therapists. And yeah, I mean, I think we keep going through these times of irrationality, but they do pass. So let's hope this one passes soon. I think you'll help bring about the end of it. Thanks. So I'll post the link to your Twitter and to your crowdfunder in the video comments. And please come back if you ever want to talk about anything related to this again. Sure. But in the meantime, best of luck. I think you're going to hit your target tomorrow, probably. It's going great, and well done on a successful crowdfunder.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
All right. Good luck, man. Well done. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks.